So let me tell you a little story about one of my candidates. She started practicing for her IELTS right after grade 12, sat for IELTS twice. She got stuck at reading 5.5, overall 6 band. Of course, between the preparation after grade 12 and all the time that she spent on IELTS and not being able to hit the grade that she wanted, there was a lot of time that was wasted. So the gap was building up, the stress was building up, and of course this was taking her into a very bad mental place. And you know, this story, it's all too familiar. It happens to a lot of candidates, and I've seen it happen to a lot of people, and actually in my own family. So this is kind of like, it came to a point where she was afraid to book her next exam. And this was where she came to us, and this is kind of like, where we thought a new plan was needed for this. The first thing that we needed to know was time management and how she was preparing for her IELTS exam. And this is what we did. The first thing that we did was, instead of her looking at IELTS preparation as a 24-hour in a day, we changed it to 168 hours a week. So instead of looking at a day, start looking at a week, zoom out. By doing just that alone, it took a lot of pressure off of her mind. Because, it can be really seductive that, we think that we need to take control of the day and we need to be productive and, of course, make progress with things. When we do that to ourselves, sometimes we circle ourselves in a time frame. And by doing so, we build a lot of pressure on our own mind. And of course, that leads to a performance that's not so great. So, if this is something that's happening to you as well, first thing that I would recommend, stop looking at your time management from the perspective that, hey, there's only 12 hours in a day, but change it to there's 168 hours in a week. So you have a full week that you can prepare for. And of course, IELTS preparation, it's a long-term, long-range game, right? So you need to think accordingly. And, by doing so, you focus on things that are more positive and you take your mind away from the negatives. Moving on to the next step. What we did was, next step was figuring out exactly what she was spending a lot of her time on. And, here's the idea is to find out exactly where time was being spent. It's not where time was being wasted. Because, we all waste time in the week, and it's not something that's new. And of course, when you start focusing on, when you start putting a narrative that, hey, I wasted this much time in a week, it becomes negative. It can actually lead to performance that's not great. It can take an impact, take a toll on your efficiency. So instead of doing that, what we did was, the approach that we used was that, hey, this is the time that you're spending on things, and it's an opportunity to spend that time on IELTS preparation instead. So by doing that alone, we gave her a positive perspective on time management and her preparation itself, right? By just doing this much, all the negativity that she had towards herself, how she would usually tell herself that, hey, I'm wasting time and I should be focusing on this. No, we changed the story, and the story now was, hey, I have this much time available that I can use for IELTS preparation. That was the second step for this one. And by doing that alone, it just changed her mood, changed her how she approached IELTS preparation in general. And of course, this helps to just develop a positive mindset too, right? Instead of focusing on being anxious, instead of, those anxiety-inducing thoughts that, hey, I'm wasting time, this helped her be more positive. So that helped. And of course, the next thing that we did was create a routine that she could stick to. Earlier, what she was doing was, sometimes she would go to bed at 9 p.m. Sometimes it would be 12 a.m. and sometimes it would even be 3 a.m. in the morning. And by that, she was waking up at different times in the morning. That is a problem. When we do that, when we don't have a routine in place, it takes away the ground beneath our feet and we start kind of floating around. It's not good for your mental health. Okay? So the first thing that we did, we created a routine for her that, hey, you know what? Go to bed at 9 p.m. at night or 9:30, nothing later than that. And wake up at 5 in the morning, start your preparations and focus on your daily routine. Now, by doing this, by sticking to a routine, she kind of like, felt a lot better. Her mood perked up and she was focusing on preparation like from a different perspective altogether. And if this is something that you are not doing, if you do not have a routine in place, work on it. Create a routine for yourself. From there on onwards, next thing that we did for her, we started planning a week ahead. So you know how I mentioned earlier that don't focus on 24 hours, but focus on 168 hours in a week? Exactly. Now, instead of doing just that alone, every Friday afternoon, we would plan her next week out. So this is what we did. We would look at the past week. We would look at, what went well, what wasn't so well, and what could have been improved. From there, we created a new approach to her preparations. So we would create a plan for the next week, and then she would do that. Surprisingly, although she needed help with IELTS reading, because that's where she was stuck at 5.5, we found out previously she was focusing more on writing and speaking. And this is where this whole exercise kind of comes into play, is that you see exactly where you're spending your time and where you should be. And for this, planning week to week really helped her out, because we would look at what the week had been, where she made progress, and where we needed to kind of go ahead. So one week she was focusing more on IELTS list of headings. The next week she was focusing more on IELTS true false and not given in the reading section. Maybe this is something you need to focus on as well. And don't just plan for the week. Reflect on it. Think about what you can do better. Think about what needs to be changed, and think about what is working for you and what is not. So this overall play in itself, it's a long-term play. And that's what IELTS is all about. It's a long-term play. You don't learn English in a day. You learn English over a period of time. So, I hope you find this helpful. And, if you have any friends who might be struggling with their IELTS, they are stuck at 5.5, given the exam multiple times, still not making progress, maybe they need to look at time management. Maybe they need to change the way they prepare for their exam. And this video can help them out, so share it with them. And hey, you know what? Don't forget to subscribe. We'll be pushing out more information like this that can actually help you out. So yeah, hope you liked the video and good luck with your exam. I'll see you in the next one.